All right. So, everybody, welcome. Hello, everybody. I'm here with Jenn Jodouin. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's my French skills coming out. Holistic nutritionist. So today she's going to talk all about human women hormone. So it's all floor's all yours, amigo.
Cool. Thank you. Welcome, ladies. Yes, as Greg said, my name is Jenn Jodouin. I'm an advanced holistic nutritionist. I specifically specialize in helping women balance their hormones through lifestyle choices. And that's been brought about by my own personal journey, which I'm going to share a little bit with you tonight. But what I thought I would do is just, I'm actually going to be giving you a whole presentation. So I'm going to be sharing my screen with you and going through kind of like the basic tips that I give to every woman to start taking control of their hormones. And I mean, even you could be sitting there thinking, well, I don't have hormone issues. I'm past menopause, or I don't have bad periods. I'm okay. And really, hormones are what control all aspects of our body. And so even though you may not have, like your sex hormones may not be causing you any real concern, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not experiencing symptoms due to a hormone imbalance in general. There's a lot of hormones that would trigger symptoms within your body that we might not consider, such as insulin, which regulates our blood sugar levels, or melatonin, which regulates our sleep, and serotonin, cortisol, which regulates our stress. And I'm actually going to get into a few of those this evening as well. But a lot of these can trigger different types of symptoms that may contribute to how you feel, and you not even realize that it's actually a hormone imbalance. So tonight I'm really just going to be going through that information and giving you a little bit of insight into how and why certain lifestyle choices would play havoc on your hormones, and what you can do about it to help balance that out. And of course, if you have any questions at any time, I welcome you to put them in the chat box. I usually like to get to questions at the end of my presentations. That kind of just keeps everything smooth flowing, so we don't have constant interruptions. So you can just leave them in the chat box and I can get to them afterwards. If you have questions of a sensitive nature, I know that my name is tagged in the group and in the event, so you're welcome to just send me a private message and I'd be happy to talk to you individually. You're also welcome to go to my Facebook page, Healthy Living with Jenn J, which you can access from my personal page, and you can click the book now button. You'll be able to schedule a 15-minute, totally complimentary discovery call, and in that we'd be able to go over some of your concerns as well. So lots of options if you have any follow-up questions or anything after the fact or during the fact that you don't want to discuss publicly. So let's dive into this. There's so much information I'm really, really excited to share with you. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen, and that is fantastic. I see everybody can hear us perfectly, so amazing. Let's get started here. All right, so this is actually this presentation that I'm giving is actually part one of a 4-part series that I host through various channels. But so this is balancing your hormones through lifestyle. It really looks at the very basics, and I always like to start this one off with a statistic, because this is kind of a really big eye-opener for a lot of women. Essentially, like in the bottom right here, you can see 80% of women worldwide experience some form of a hormone imbalance. That means 4 out of 5 of us. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's for your whole life. It could be at one small moment in time. It could be a lifelong journey for you. It could be you go your whole life never basically feeling amazing all of the time, and then all of a sudden it's like a flip and something is totally different and wrong. Essentially 10 to 20% of women worldwide are incapable of achieving or successfully completing a pregnancy. So, I mean, when you think about all of the women that we know in our lives, 1 or 2 out of every 10 of those can't have children. 10 to 20% live with endometriosis and polycystic ovary syndrome. 40% of women experience sexual dysfunction. This is actually a topic that most women never like to talk about. And in fact, our hormones in general are something that isn't really talked about, because it's always passed off as, a woman's issue, or, well, that's normal, or she's PMSing, and you kind of just get all these phrases thrown at it. You're being moody, and of course there's always a whole other level of words to accompany those. But essentially, hormones and women's health is not a very publicly discussed topic. And so I really like to bring it to the forefront and say, you know, like maybe the types of symptoms you're experiencing, they might be considered common, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're normal. So I ask you, which one of these 6 categories do you fall into? Because out of the, how many of us are on here right now? Out of the 6 of us, there's a good chance that 4 or 5 of us fall into one of these categories. So it's kind of just a little eye opener for you. Well, why does this matter to me, right? This is kind of like, well, who cares really? No, I care because for the last 17 years, I have battled a hormone imbalance. 17 years, from the time I was 13 years old. And when I was 13 through 18, I was constantly going to my doctors saying, you know, this huge list of symptoms. And they were saying, well, you know what, you're a teenager, your hormones are all over the place. Let's put you on a birth control pill that will help kind of stabilize things and regulate for you. And it did for a couple of months. And then the medication would stop working again because my hormones would fluctuate some more, and they would change my medication. And each medication essentially was, you know, it was treating some symptoms, but it was causing others. And so I went through this yo-yo and roller coaster effect my entire teenage years into my early 20s, constantly being you know, in and out of the doctors and constantly being tested. I had blood work done, I had ultrasounds done. I was actually even seeing Sick Kids Hospital through my teenage years 2-3 times a year. And we were never ever actually finding anything consistent or anything that would indicate to a doctor a specific diagnosis or something we were specifically looking at. But of course, when I'm taking all this medication that's to counteract these things, how can we actually find a problem? And so I was about 23 when I made this list of symptoms that I was experiencing on a daily basis, daily or weekly basis. And I brought it to, at the time, my new family physician. And I said to her, you know, my husband and I are ready to start a family. There is a long line of hormone imbalances in my family, in my genetics, my mother, my sister, my grandmother, on both sides of the family. I'm really concerned. I'm concerned that I'm 23, I want to start having children, and I'm concerned that that might not be an option for me. And I was very fortunate enough to have a doctor who took that seriously. I had brought this list. This was the exact list, actually. I had typed it up and I had printed it and brought it with me. And thank you, Google Drive. It saved this list. And so I was actually able to pull this list from my Google Drive to put into here to like, this is the true and honest list of symptoms I had. And, you know, my doctor took me seriously enough to say, okay, I agree. We should be doing some testing. So we pulled me off of all of my medication. We ran some testing. At the time, she said, feel free to start trying to conceive whenever you are ready. And be warned that most women take an average of 1 year to get pregnant. So I thought, okay, well, I'm kind of like not very optimistic about my options of being pregnant at all. There was like my mother had huge issues in conceiving and maintaining, carrying a successful pregnancy. So I really didn't think I would have much success. We had, after I'd come off my medications, we had run, you know, all the normal tests that we're supposed to do. My blood work came back showing everything looked okay. It looked normal. But my ultrasound did not show that. And I actually had polycystic ovary syndrome. And essentially, if you're not sure what that is, that's essentially where your ovaries are producing cysts. They're empty egg sacs that continually grow and either pop off of your ovaries, or they get dissolved, or they continue to grow and stay there. In my case, I had substantial damage to my ovaries at 23. And my doctor called me after getting the results, and she said, after 8 months of trying, if you're not pregnant, we're going to take aggressive action. That scared me. Like, it was totally terrifying. And of course, I was super, super fortunate to actually conceive naturally at the very last end of the 8 months. I don't know how it happened. It must have been fate. I carried that pregnancy to term. It was incredible. um, and I was really, really fortunate. So, but the thing was after that, I started breastfeeding my daughter, and I breastfed for 26 months or so. She was just after her second birthday. And, you know, in that time, I started to experience all these symptoms again, and many of them had worsened. I mean, I was when my you know when my when my menstrual cycle finally returned while I was breastfeeding, it came with a vengeance. I was actually passing out. I was making monthly trips to the hospital. I was in so much pain that I actually felt like I was in labor every month for like 3-4 days. And I was going to the hospital, and the doctors were running the tests, and I was getting that N word again. Everything looks normal. The final like straw that broke this camel's back for me, the snapping point for me, was when I had arrived at the hospital by ambulance on a busy Friday night. It was about 3 in the morning. I had been home alone with my daughter, who was 2.5 at the time, and I had started my period that night, and it was so bad that I passed out and I couldn't actually maintain consciousness. I had to force myself and fight against. I honestly don't know how long I was passed out for. And being home alone with my daughter, I thought, like, this is definitely not safe. I called an ambulance. I called my best friend. My best friend came over to watch my daughter. The paramedic, or the 911 responders, actually stayed on the phone with me the entire time in case I lost consciousness again, so that they could monitor my daughter's safety as well. I arrived at the hospital, and the doctors ran all their tests. Now, I arrived, again, 3 in the morning. I was wearing my pajamas. I was in slippers, and my lower half of clothing was truthfully soaked in blood from my hips to my feet. It was so embarrassing. And the hospital was so busy that night, of course. And I just remember they ran all the tests. Everything, of course, came back normal. The doctor called me. He didn't bring me into a private exam room. He kept me waiting in the hallway, surrounded by all these people. And he said to me, "Your tests look normal. You're not having a medical emergency. Go home and take a Tylenol." I don't know if it was fatigue or embarrassment, or just defeat. But truthfully, I'm not a violent person. And in that moment, I really could have punched him in the face. I just couldn't believe I was standing there in the physical condition that I was in, being told that everything was normal and that I should just take a Tylenol. I really left the hospital feeling so defeated. But when I finally started to feel better, days later, I realized, you know, I'm not the only woman who goes through this. I'm not the only woman who has battled the medical system for so long, and who has been told that everything is normal, or who has been just given a prescription and told, take this or take that or take this and that. And while there is absolutely a place for our medical system, absolutely. And if you are working with a medical professional, I absolutely recommend that you take their advice. So I'm not here to tell you not to take their advice, or that my information replaces what they've told you, but this is really going to give you information in how in your lifestyle you do have some control. And I truthfully felt powerless that night. I really felt like all my power as a person, as a woman, had been stripped from me. And I just thought, you know, this it's not normal. And I decided at that point, I was already a nutritionist and I was already living a very healthy lifestyle. I decided I was going to dig really deep into how our lifestyle choices affect our bodies ability to do what it's supposed to do, to regulate naturally. And that's really what brought me to being here today. And I'm really fortunate enough to say that I don't experience those symptoms anymore, and that I am aware and in control of the types of lifestyle choices that trigger my symptoms. I do actually have a diagnosis now. Actually, I have endometriosis, which is essentially where your uterine tissue grows on the outside of your uterus, and it causes a lot of extra tissue in your abdomen. It can spread out through most of your body, and it causes a ton of problems. But I actually don't experience those symptoms anymore. And I can often tell if I've done something to my body that would cause a symptomatic flare up. And that's what I like to empower women with, is that insight, that power, and that control into what their body is doing at different times of their cycle, even if they're past menopause. So here I am throwing around this word, these hormones. What the heck are they, right? This is, I mean, we're kind of told what they are when we're in middle school and we're given the sex ed class, but really, what are they? What do they do? Hormones are a chemical messenger within our body. They're produced in various areas of our body. Some are produced in the brain, some in the liver, some in the stomach, some in the pituitary gland, they're thyroid, they're all over the place. And essentially, these chemical messengers tell your body what to do at different times, when to do it, how strongly to do it. And this is all controlled by your endocrine system. And your endocrine system essentially decides how much of these hormones should be released and when and why. So hormones work in relation with each other, meaning that you can have normal blood work, as I've had my entire life. But when your hormones are not in the proper ratio with each other, that's when you start to experience a hormone imbalance. And these are just the types of symptoms that you may experience if you were looking at your two main sex hormones, which is our progesterone and our estradiol. Our estradiol is our estrogen. That's what, women are known for. But progesterone is actually our hormone that is responsible for pregnancy. And so the two of them, when in relation to each other, if they're out of balance in any direction, that's when you start to experience these symptoms. And you can see here the overlap of symptoms in the small pink circles, and just how common a lot of them really are. I mean, right in the middle here: bloating, mood swings, headaches, migraines, and fatigue. Those 5 symptoms are literally experienced by every woman, regardless of what age they are or where they are in their life cycle. And that's essentially because as we're going through daily cycles, our hormones are coming in and out of balance. So how are we actually getting these hormone imbalances? This is what we want to know, right? If you look here at these photos, they have to do with a lot of our daily choices. Our dairy products and our meat products, they're really big contributing factors. They have tons of concentrated growth hormones in them. And I'm not saying only the ones that are, pumped full of antibiotics and growth hormones. I'm saying just in general. If you took any form of animal in its natural environment and you did absolutely nothing to it, but slaughtered it and ate its tissues or drank its milk, it would have concentrated growth hormone. Why? Because all animals do. We do too. We have growth hormone in our body. But the difference is that these animals, their concentration of growth hormone is different than what our body recognizes. And so when we're adding excess growth hormone into our body, that actually throws an imbalance within our own body, because then our body's saying, like, how much hormone should I actually be producing right now when I have this foreign hormone coming into me? And so that's when you start to get a little bit of an imbalance. Then we can look at sugar and gluten. Those are inflammatory foods. Inflammatory foods cause an autoimmune response where your body starts to, attack inflammation within the body. And inflammation is the root cause of almost all illnesses, diseases, symptoms, pain. It's essentially your body saying, whoa, there's invaders somewhere in my system that shouldn't be. I have to go send out my little army to fix this problem. But the problem is that when we have inflammation in various areas of our body, much of the, our protective army can't actually keep up with the amount of invasion that our body is getting. And we get that from sugar, and we get that from gluten. We get that from stress, and we get that from burnout. Stress raises our cortisol levels. Higher cortisol levels results in higher levels of testosterone and estrogen within our body, which also raises or causes an imbalance, right? And then the lower level here of chemicals. So in our beauty products, our cleaning products, all our household products, all our hygiene products, basically every chemical that we are using, even paints on our wall, flooring, these all contain chemicals that are leaching into our bodies, either through air, skin, or ingestion, that are causing an inflammatory response in our body and cause a hormone imbalance. In fact, many of these chemicals are actually called xenoestrogens, which means that they mimic our body's internal estrogen once they're inside of our body. And then our body is kind of like, well, am I supposed to be producing estrogen because I'm already finding some in here? So your body doesn't really know what to do. So what can we actually do, right? Like when we're looking at all of those factors, our bodies are being attacked on a daily basis by toxins and chemicals and inflammatory substances that are causing these imbalances. So how do we get to a more balanced state? Well, we really have to look at our lifestyle commitments, right? So we want to be adding more positive and protective aspects to our life. So that's more plants, more fruits and vegetables. We want to be getting more sleep and encouraging self-care, more exercise, more water, more fresh air. And we want to look at reducing or eliminating, the more inflammatory and toxic components such as meat and dairy, refined sugars, processed foods, caffeine and alcohol, and harsh chemicals. I'm actually going to go into detail about each of these so that you kind of understand how or why these would be contributing to your hormone imbalance. Because I know for like a lot of women that I work with, they look at this list and they say, whoa, Jen, I am out. You're telling me I can't have cheese? You're telling me I can't have a donut? I can't drink my wine or my coffee? Like, I am way out on this because that's just not realistic for me. And so really, what I really try to like teach women is that let's start by adding the good stuff. Because when you start adding the good stuff to your body actually craves it, and you start wanting less of the other stuff. And that just naturally happens because your body recognizes good habits. And unfortunately, our more poor habits are actually, they reinforce each other. And I'll actually show you that here. So reducing our refined sugars, for example. So a refined sugar would be, your white breads, your muffins, basically any sweets or candies, donuts, even just like white pastas, that sort of thing. They're a simple sugar, and basically our body breaks it down really quick, which causes a really large spike in our insulin level. And this elevated insulin level actually lowers our levels of sex hormone binding globulin. And what this is here, I'm going to use kind of a metaphor for this. This is essentially a cup that, circulates throughout our body, and it collects excess hormones so that it can remove them from our body. But let's assume we have 100 of these cups. When we have elevated insulin levels, which is a spike in our blood sugar, we have less of these cups available to actually collect our excess hormones. So instead of having 100 cups to collect these excess hormones, we may only have, say, 50 of them, which means only half of these excess hormones are actually being collected to remove. So what happens with the ones that stay behind? Well, this elevates our testosterone level. And yes, us women, we have that too. But our testosterone is actually converted into estrogen. And estrogen is stored in fat tissues in our belly. So if you find that you are holding excess weight in your belly region, you may be holding on to excess estrogen, which would be caused by what? Our higher levels of refined sugar intake, okay? And these are directly relating to, you know, our mood swings, our sugar cravings, irritability, anxiety, insomnia, because they're being stored in our fat tissue, which means we're recirculating them and using them, so that unbalanced ratio comes into place again. Then what happens is we hit the other side of that peak and our blood sugar levels drop. And then because they drop rapidly, our bodies think, oh, wow, like I need more fuel again. I need more sugars to sustain me. And you repeat the cycle because you turn to something sweet. That's why you'll notice if, say, you eat, you know, like, I don't know, a bagel, maybe like an hour later, you're feeling hungry again. And that's exactly why, because that bagel really only gave you a short-term energy boost, and you've dropped again. You want to look at eating things that are more complex, like a complex carbohydrate, which would be fruits and vegetables, or a whole grain instead of these refined sugars. But you also want to look at eating on a regular basis. So how often are you actually eating? Are you going long periods of time? You want to aim to be eating something every 2 to 3 hours. That's really going to help keep you in your zone of willpower, where you're not making bad choices and you're not getting on that roller coaster of your blood sugar level going up and down. So dairy, we talked a little bit about how that growth hormone contributes to a hormone imbalance within our body, but it also, you know, you can see here in this image, it also contributes to early puberty. Why? Because there's excess growth hormones in our body. Cancer, and even like things like breast cancer and osteoporosis for women, really, really big deals. So even though, you know, we've been marketed that dairy is a really great option for creating strong bones, really what's happening is there's a protein in it that actually leaches leaches minerals and calcium from our bones, which it counteracts what we've been taught. Dairy is a convenient way to get concentrated amounts of calcium, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best way. I do actually do a talk. Part 2 of this series is actually the top 5 nutrients that women need on a daily basis. And in that, I actually address where to get your calcium from. So if anybody has interest in that, you can just make note, and we could, if there's enough interest, we could schedule another one. We could schedule that talk. But otherwise, you can just reach out to me and we can talk about that. Processed foods themselves, they contain very little nutrients. I really like to focus on nutrient-dense foods, and essentially that means the nutrient content in a food is much more concentrated, much more higher, more dense than another option. So for example, an option would be looking at the nutrients of an apple versus, say, apple juice. Apple juice has removed the fiber and has concentrated sugars, whereas the whole apple contains all of those fibers, which is going to help sustain your feeling of fullness and regulate your blood sugar levels. Then, of course, processed foods also contain a ton of added you know, fillers and preservatives, chemicals inside of them, and all of those contribute. Again, they act as xenoestrogens that fool your body into thinking you have estrogen within your body, and then your body stops kind of making estrogen, or it recognizes that it's the wrong type of estrogen and then overproduces. Caffeine and alcohol, this is where I know, like, most women are like, if I can't have this, I'm out. Here's why I don't recommend alcohol and caffeine. Now remember, these are just lifestyle factors, right? So some of them may cause issues for you, some of them may not. And really it's about identifying the types of food and choices in your lifestyle that contribute to triggers and flare-ups. So for some people, these are not issues. For others, they are. For me personally, I've actually had to eliminate all alcohol from my diet. Um, I personally can't have it. It is a massive symptom flare for me, and it's actually what contributes to putting me in the hospital. So alcohol, first of all, really concentrated levels of simple sugars. So that's right away raising your blood sugar levels. But alcohol also contributes to elevated cortisol levels. Cortisol is our stress hormone. It's our fight or flight hormone, which really puts our body at a standoff guard. And when we have elevated cortisol levels for sustained amounts of time, it puts your body into this fight or flight mode where it's not really sure what's going on, and so it starts overproducing things like testosterone, which we learned earlier turns into estrogen, gets stored in the fat tissues of your belly, and then recirculated. So, and for me with endometriosis, that's actually an estrogen dominant illness, and having excess estrogens in my body is obviously not good. So I actually do have to limit my alcohol for exactly that reason. Caffeine, though, here's a really big thing about caffeine. Caffeine really inhibits our body's ability to absorb nutrients, such as zinc, iron, our B vitamins, and all of these are really, really important for women to, feel and look amazing. And so, having good energy, having clear skin, having, healthy hair, reduced muscle pain, all of that can be attributed to caffeine intake. So, and again, that's something I touch on in part 2 of this series. But yeah, so if you must drink caffeine, I'd recommend no more than 1 cup of coffee per day. Reducing stress, as we talked about earlier. So elevated cortisol levels really contribute to boosts of testosterone, which again, circle back into our estrogen. So causing that estrogen imbalance is really going to start to increase your PMSing, oh my gosh, like mood swings, anxiety even. So reducing stress. And I usually recommend, like, even if you just find 5 or 10 minutes in your day to just de-stress and be calm and center yourself, be aware of what your body is doing, and go into how you feel, not just emotionally, but physically too. Just be really intentional about what your body is doing and be aware of it. Exercise is another really big thing. So when we exercise, our body actually eliminates a lot of toxins when we are exercising consistently. So I strongly recommend that if you even if you are not willing to, remove caffeine or alcohol or sugars from your diet, at least exercising is going to help provide some protective qualities to your body by removing excess toxins that contribute to hormone imbalances. And harsh chemicals. So we talked a little bit about this earlier, but there's 2 things I want to mention on here. Number 1 is that BPAs, which is one of the most harmful chemicals out there, is actually found in 9 out of 10 people. And 232 toxic chemicals are found in the umbilical cord blood of newborns. Why is this significant? Because it means before your child has even taken its first breath of air, it has been exposed to 232 toxic chemicals that are already starting to play havoc and take control and change how that baby's hormones will and are produced and regulated. Can you imagine? Before they even take their first breath of air. So why does that matter? Because it means that your babies right away are exposed to this, which means they're more prone to having hormone imbalances when they're older, or illnesses or inflammation or autoimmune issues. And even here too, you can see like asthma is linked to that, Parkinson's disease, fertility issues. But you're probably thinking, okay, well, this is great, like all these chemicals, but where can I actually find them, right? So let's have a realistic look. These are the types of products that you can find endocrine disrupting chemicals in. Personally, to me, this list is really scary, especially when you look at the very last item, menstrual products. These products are going onto or into our most sensitive tissue. Most sensitive tissue. It's our thinnest tissue on our body. And our skin works in two ways. It expels heat, sweat, toxins, but it also intakes toxins, chemicals, all of that. So these endocrine disrupting chemicals can actually be found in our menstrual products. So I strongly, and also our soaps, shampoos, perfumes, makeups, like all of the things that, you know, we use on a daily basis as women, you can find these in. So I strongly encourage you to look at transitioning from, you know, disposable menstrual products to more sustainable, reusable options. I know there's a lot of really great menstrual cups on the product or on the market that do not contain endocrine disruptors, as well as, you know, like mama cloth, if you're comfortable with that. There's so many great options on the market now, and I strongly encourage you to look into them. But also to our general products that we use on a daily basis. Start looking and reaching out to companies that have more natural options. But also too, like our canned food and our plastics, our meat and fish, same thing, right? Because the hormones are stored in their fat tissues, and then if we eat their fat tissues, we're getting all that excess hormone. But our detergents, our cleaning supplies, milk and rice, our nonstick cookware. Can you imagine? Like, I've gone my whole life using nonstick cookware, never once, not even once did it ever cross my mind that the chemicals in my pan would actually be going into my food. It just never occurred to me. So there's all these different types of areas that our bodies are being attacked literally on a daily basis, which is why I really like to encourage people, you know, let's focus on the 5 things that we can really control, of, you know, adding more fruits and veggies, getting better sleep and taking care of ourselves, exercising, drinking more water, all of these things. This picture here is really eye-opening for me. The Environmental Working Group is a nonprofit organization. You can actually go to their website. They have tons of information about what chemicals are most harmful, or products that you would want to look at as being safer options. But this is such an eye-opening photo for so many women, because when you think about all of the products that we use on a daily basis, excuse me, or that, you know, we're marketed to require or to buy in order to feel or look beautiful, these are directly contributing to a lot of our issues. And so the average woman puts about 168 chemicals on their body every day. I just can't even believe that. And that's that's just on our body. That doesn't even, you know, count everything when you walk out of your house. So just kind of really eye-opening. But here's another, like, drinking our water is really, really important. I mean, you can see I've got my 1 liter jar here. But it's not, I mean, we know that we need to drink water, and we know that it's because we need to stay hydrated, but there's more to it than that. Drinking water from a woman's standpoint is going to actually help reduce your muscle pain. So if you're experiencing, you know, painful periods, or, you know, slow recovery time from your workouts, or even just muscle soreness, you might want to start thinking about increasing your water intake. That's really going to help keep your muscles from bunching up in a dehydrated state. But it also helps with your bloating. Why? Because if you're not drinking enough water, your body goes into that fight or flight mode again, and it starts retaining water wherever it can find it. In your food, whatever you are drinking, it just retains liquid. So drinking more water can actually help to flush whatever your body is holding onto and reduce that fight or flight instinct. But it also helps with your brain fog and your brain fog, and your cravings. So a lot of the times women, like, I'm super guilty of this. I think that I'm hungry, but I'm actually thirsty. And so I recommend, you know, if you're feeling hungry or you're feeling a craving, I would recommend having a glass of water and then waiting 10 to 15 minutes before you actually eat anything to actually see if you were hungry. All right, this is the biggest thing that we can do on a daily basis though. Why? Because we literally eat all the time. So this is the first step that you can take in starting to manage and balance your hormones, because you can add more fruits and veggies to your plate. And your plate should look like this. This is from the Canadian Food Guide that was updated in 2019. Half of your plate should be fruits and veggies, or half of your servings whenever you are eating. So whether that's your meals or your snacks, even your dessert, you should be looking at having fruits and vegetables. And then having whole grains and a clean source of protein is really going to help add those nutrients, help you feel fuller, but really going to help your body do what it's supposed to do. And because we eat all the time, this is why I live by the slogan that I am living healthy one bite at a time, because each time that I am eating, I'm making a choice to fuel and heal my body. So fruits and vegetables are loaded with what's called phytonutrients, and those are concentrated nutrients, all in their proper and natural form for our body to recognize and use, which is the difference between eating real food versus just taking a multivitamin. And these phytonutrients are going to support all of this and more. They're basically the protective barrier to your cells. So they're going to improve your cardiovascular wellness, support your immune system, reduce inflammation, protect your DNA, and seriously increase the quality of your life. So what can you do with all this information? You have two pathways that you can start basically today. I'm running a moon cycle detox on June 1st. It lasts 28 days. You can join this program. This program is a ton of fun, but 28-day moon cycle guide, 1 month shopping plan, shopping list, recipe guide, food diary, support videos, private Facebook support group with me, lifetime access to everything you download, and it's only $49 for the whole month. But it's more than that. This is just what you get with it. This program is about listening to your body. It's about understanding what your body needs at different times of your cycle and feeding it what it needs, not just food, but emotionally, socially, physically. It's really about starting to tune in to what your body does naturally, and supporting that. So that's option one. Option two, this right here is my Women's Beginner's Lifestyle Guide to Balancing Your Hormones. It goes over everything I just went over just now with you, and even way more than that. It's like a 20-something page ebook for you. This is totally free. This is free just as a thank you to you for being here tonight, because I really appreciate everybody's time, and I really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about yourself. So this is free for you. So if you would like this, feel free to just leave, say, yes, I want it in the chat box. and then we can connect so that I can email this to you. But this is totally free, tons of information for you. And it's literally got a step-by-step guide, what you need to do or what you should aim to do on a daily basis to really start feeling great about your body. So I'll challenge you, based on everything that I've just told you tonight, which I realized was a ton of information. But what is one thing in your life that you could change today to influence your hormone health? You don't have to post it publicly, but I just want you to think about it. You know, what from all of that information, adding those five healthy concepts and thinking or starting to reduce or eliminate the five problematic concepts, which one of those could you start to change today? And with that, I say a huge thank you. This was actually really, really fun. I really enjoyed talking about all of this. So if there are any questions, what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to jump over to the chat box here and see if there are any questions. Oh, Nicole. Okay, great. I will definitely send that to you. I'm just going to copy and paste email addresses here so we don't lose anything. Okay. Perfect. All right, and that's Nicole. And then we have Yes, yes, exactly. So what Greg said. So if you would like that free guide, go ahead and just post your email address. Nat, you as well. That's fantastic. I find a lot of women find this guide really helpful. Okay, yeah. Yeah, they find it really helpful just in giving them, you know, a visual. Like there is a printout checklist that you can actually put on your fridge so you know on a day-to-day basis what your goals are, how to get yourself there. Okay, Annie, I got you there too. Okay. Okay, Jose. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Just about to say, I don't see an email address there. And yeah, like if you ladies have interest in the, like that was part 1 of a 4-part series. The other ones, this one, all right, so part 2 is 5 nutrients all women need on a daily basis. Part 3 is endocrine disruptors and your hormone health. So that dives deeper into the chemical aspect. And then part 4 is all about autoimmune and hormone detoxing. So it's a whole series. If you have interest in it, you can either let myself or Greg know, and then we could schedule a follow-up with that. So yeah, okay, so Nicole, is the organic grass-fed meats better for you? Does it have less hormones than, oops, we just, what happened here? Than regular. Okay, so yes, it does. If you're comparing it with, say, standard raised factory farmed meat, yes, organic raised meats have less hormones in them. However, they do still have high concentrations of their own natural growth hormones. So for some people, that doesn't affect them. Like I said, like everybody's body will respond differently to the amounts and types of triggers. So for some people that isn't necessary. I personally live a plant-based vegan lifestyle. That's my own personal choice. And so for some like to take that route, others don't. And so for those who don't like it, and staying on the organic grass-fed side of animal-based products, yes. It was a so interesting, very informative session. Thank you so much. You're so welcome. I'm glad you liked the information. I know it's a ton of information, but yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. You're so welcome, Greg. And everybody, of course. All right, so I'm just gonna run through here. I have Nicole, Nat, Annie, and Jose for the free ebook. Is there anybody else who wanted it?
I don't know how to put a message.
Oh, okay. You're on an iPad. Okay, if you touch somewhere on your screen, there should be kind of like a pop-up, like a bar pop-up along the bottom, and it would have a chat option.
Chat. Okay, chat. There. Okay.
There you go. There we go.
No.
Perfect. Okay, I will go ahead and send that to you as well. Making sure I've got everything here proper. Perfect. Okay, I've got 5 of you there. Awesome. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions, then I will let all you ladies go. I don't want to take up too much of your time. But again, like I said, if you had other questions that come up after the fact, you can just reach out to me or Greg, and Greg can help you get in connected with me. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here. This was great.
Thank you.